Hello everyone. Just as a means of introduction, again, my name is Stephanie White. I will start out this blog by outlining some of the past leadership experience that I have had. My only formal role as in a leadership position would be that of the charge nurse. I did function in that capacity on several occasions during my time as a staff nurse on the pediatric unit. Currently in my role in utilization management, I'm not assigned a formal leadership role. However, I will say that I'm often looked to as a leader for my current team. I do hold the most experience and the most seniority in our team, so I'm often looked to for solutions to complex situations. I have also been called on to participate in the interview process on multiple occasions for new candidates. I have found that to be sometimes a difficult process because candidates, of course, they always put their best foot forward, so sometimes a really good interview can be a bad hire, and sometimes a not so great interview can end up being a really good hire. So that's a little bit difficult process that I guess it just takes a lot of experience in completing that, so that you can kind of try to read people in a better way to try to make sure you get the right fit for your team. In the leadership skills questionnaire, I scored high in administrative and interpersonal skills, both had a score of 24, and then I scored very high in conceptual skill with a score of 26. In the hospital that I work, I would say that our organizational chart reflects more of a vertical arrangement, and I have a copy of it here. See if you can kind of see it. And you can see this is our nursing department here, right here. And then there is a line of communication over to the physicians section over here. But other than that, there are no other lines of communication between the different sections. My current role, as I said, this was the nursing section here. My current role, though, is over here under the chief financial officer, and we're down here in case management. That's my current role. In my current department in case management, our department, I would say, does function under a transdisciplinary approach. We have RN navigators that are teamed with medical social workers, and then that team works with the physicians, with other ancillary departments, and also with outside agencies in formulating discharge plans and case management things that the patient needs. I would say that at our hospital that there are elements of a matrix structure on occasion. There are disease-specific teams, such as our stroke team, that is an interdisciplinary team, and also through various improvement projects that have been ongoing at the hospital. I remember specifically when our hospital went to online charting, that was a project that required the role of many different disciplines coming together to make that a successful project. So if I were in a management position, what skills would be most important to me? I took the list of skills that are on page 155 of our textbook, and I kind of narrowed them down to what I felt would be the most important to me if I were a manager. And I think the most important out of all of them to me would be adequate and effective communication. If you're not communicating with your team effectively, then they're not going to know what direction they need to go. Also, I think it's very important that a manager is an active listener and that you seek to understand the likes and the dislikes and also the problems of the group. I think it's extremely important that the manager be fair. And then I also think that it is important that the manager works to gain respect from the group. And I think that can be done in a couple of different ways. I think it's important for a manager to truly know and understand and to be proficient in their subordinates' job duties. To have a manager who doesn't really know the job duties of the subordinates, I don't think that manager can adequately manage those people, and I don't think that manager would adequately know how to address certain issues. I also think that it is important that the manager represents the subordinates and their concerns openly and honestly with higher management. And then also, I think it's important to hold the group accountable. I'm a big proponent of accountability. I've been in situations before where managers have not held people accountable, and that's very frustrating, very frustrating. As far as the leadership skills questionnaire, the takeaways that I took from that I've found that I think would be most important would be immediately addressing problems. I think it's important to not let things fester in a group. Also, I think that it's important that flexibility is there, but it has to be tempered with not losing sight of the big picture. You can't always be so flexible to the demands of the group if that means compromising the big picture and the big goal. So if I were to work in a management role and would try to secure staffing resources, my goal would be to build a team that was competent and effective, and I would also like a team that would eventually require minimal supervision regarding the day-to-day functions and job duties. I think it's important to seek out a team that can function autonomously so that you're not there nitpicking and having to look over their shoulder on a consistent basis. My goal would be to employ individuals that would work well together on a unit-based team, and that they would also have the confidence to function as a member of an interprofessional team. So in researching some articles on an interprofessional team, I did come across an article. It is titled Interprofessional Practice and Education, Holistic Approaches to Complex Healthcare Challenges. And it was written by Monica Nandon, PhD, and also Patricia Scott, PhD and MSW. Okay. And the takeaways that I took from that article would be that healthcare today is characterized by complex medical problems, and we all know that from seeing different patients and the complexity of the medical issues that come into the hospital. And these complex problems are in need of increasingly complex solutions. And these complex solutions that are required, they call for a variety of viewpoints. And that, I think, is where the interprofessional team comes into play, and that it is beneficial to have the viewpoints from so many different professions and different specialties to help formulate these complex solutions. The interprofessional workforce meets the need of these complex solutions through a series of criteria, and let's see, those would be that they blend multi-professional knowledge, perspective, and skill. They minimize duplication of efforts and services. They maximize coordination. They increase cost effectiveness, and they work to attain a lasting impact by improving health outcomes. The article also outlined 4 competencies of interprofessional practice. Those would be values and ethics for interprofessional practice. Each individual discipline has its own values and ethics, but it's important for the collaborative team to come together and formulate values and ethics that are important to the collaborative team. Secondly, roles and responsibilities, and this was stated that these must be clearly defined, that you can't have one person assuming the role of somebody else and the other person not knowing it, that the roles and responsibilities have to be clearly defined. Thirdly, interprofessional communication, and that outlined the ability to effectively give and receive feedback, and also to develop interdisciplinary vocabulary and understanding. Again, each discipline has its own jargon and its own slang and terms that they use, but it's important to formulate a vocabulary that is understandable to all. Fourthly, the 4th competency, teams and teamwork. Members of the interprofessional team have to be a good team player. They also have to engage in shared problem solving, and they engage in the coordination of care to avoid gaps and redundancies in care. So to be a manager, if I were to be effective in my role, how would I go about that? I think it would be if I were to be, and I looked at this as if I were a manager in my current position in coordination of care, and I would have to have effective communication with the physicians. That would be the ED physicians and also the hospitalist physicians and also the private physicians, but at our facility we primarily work with the hospitalist physicians. Also with the nursing staff and the multitude of ancillary departments, post-acute services, also the outside agencies. We do a lot of work with multiple disciplines. And as I showed earlier on the hospital plan, the preference for me would be, I really like our plan that we have, how it's more of a vertical structure. I think that clearly outlines and determines lines of accountability, chain of command. It gives structure to the organization. A more flattened approach, I think, leaves a lot of gray areas, and that's just my opinion. Not everybody has that opinion. But again, you can see, and back to if I were the manager, so my role would be in coordination of care over here in the CFO blank, or CFO column rather, and I would have to be in communication with the physicians, with the nurses, also with ancillary departments, and also the post-acute services are over here. So it would be, I would have to cross multiple lines in order to be an effective manager. And again, that's where communication comes into play. And as I stated earlier, I think the level of communication, the effectiveness of your communication is probably the most important thing that you can have as a manager. So I'm not sure, in conclusion, that I'm not sure that I would ever want to be in a supervisory role. I'm not sure that that's my calling. I kind of like being a worker bee. But if I ever am in a management position, I hope that I would be considered to be effective and respected. And I would hope that I would be known for being fair, honest, and trustworthy. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot. Y'all have a great day.